Hey, mamas. I am so glad to be with you here today. All right, so what are we doing today? So today is all about YNAB. YNAB it stands for You Need a Budget, and it is my absolute favorite budgeting platform that exists. I have actually used it since college. So my very first internship, which was actually an unpaid internship in Boston, I downloaded the YNAB app. At that time, it was barely out of being a spreadsheet. Once upon a time, this was like just an Excel spreadsheet, and then it became a desktop app, and now it is a browser-based app and an actual phone app that you can use. But I used it way back then, and I've used it forever, and I've tried a lot of different systems, and I really like YNAB. But what I know to be true, and that's why we're so excited to have, by the way, YNAB as a sponsor this year. They're our gold sponsor. They are super excited to be involved in the event. Hey, Cordy. And we're glad to have them. But what we do know is that YNAB takes a little bit of a learning curve. And we think about the number of people who struggle to budget, right? Who can't figure it out, or it's just too hard. We know that the way we think about budgeting is kind of broken, right? It just doesn't work with how our money actually needs to move. And so YNAB thinks about money differently in a way that works, but because it's not the way you usually think about budgeting, it's a little bit different, right? And so today, what we're going to do, and this might be a long live. And so this might be one where like you watch for a while, you follow along, and then you go, rewatch when you're ready to kind of do it side by side with me. And if there's a link above this video, by the way, to get your free trial for YNAB. So if you're not currently a YNAB user and you want to go sign up right now while I kind of explain the basics of what YNAB is before I bring the share screen up, you can actually follow along and do this with me. That might be really, really helpful for you. So sign up for that free trial. So why is YNAB different? Let me give you some of the examples of why YNAB is different first. The first is this is effectively cash envelope budgeting in a digital form. And so you are only ever budgeting the dollars you already have. And that can be really hard for people who are used to trying to think about planning for the whole month. And you do plan in YNAB, you just do it differently. And we're going to show you how to do that. But you only can allocate money that you already have in your hands. And so what that forces you to do is think about what bills do I have coming up and which do I have to prioritize? And so sometimes we get stuck in what we call this like credit card cycle where, when you spend money on your debit card, you spend cash, that cash is immediately gone, right? You spend the money and it's disappeared. And it's gone to whatever you paid it for. With a credit card, you spend the money, but you haven't actually paid it yet. You don't owe it until the credit card payment comes due. So you might look at your bank account and say, well, I don't have the money right now, but I'll have it by the end of the month. So I'll swipe the credit card, but then you forget and you spend that money on something else. And then the credit card bill comes at the end of the month and you can't pay it because you didn't actually think about how that money was being used. And so YNAB makes you automatically, any money you spend on your credit card, you have to plan for paying it off. And if you don't, you're going to get a warning. And I'll show you what that warning looks like. So that's one way that it's different. The other way that it's different is that it's very flexible, and it's going to give you these little kind of like slight warnings to say, hey, you're not on track with this goal. Why don't we move money from one category to another category? And we want to make it really flexible. And so it's not rigid. Okay. So you're really trying to figure out like, hey, not every month looks the same. That's okay. It doesn't mean I'm bad at budgeting. It just means that we got to make some changes, right? We got to move some things around. And so that's a little bit different with the way YNAB works. So as we get into this system, I'm going to show you exactly how to set it up. What we're going to do is I'm going to open a blank YNAB profile. Like this is completely new. You guys will see what it looks like. And then we'll set it up. We'll add some accounts. I'm going to show you how to add accounts, how it looks at transactions, okay? And then how to build your first budget and really set up a budget in a way that it's easy to follow and easy to use. And that relies a lot on goals, okay? So we're going to talk about setting up your budget. We're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about using credit cards with YNAB because credit cards is one of the places that are most confusing for people because a lot of stuff is happening a little bit behind the scenes. And so you need to know how credit cards work with YNAB. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how to reconcile your accounts, and reconciling is really important to making sure that you can trust the numbers that are in YNAB, that you actually have that money to spend. So for my family, we have one main checking account. My husband and I each have very small personal checking accounts. That's where our spending money goes into. And then we have an emergency fund savings account. Those are our only bank accounts. But the way we look at YNAB is that every single category we have in YNAB, which is a lot of categories, are kind of like mini virtual bank accounts. We only, if we're going to go spend on dining out, we only look on that category for what we have for dining out. And so we need to be able to trust that number to make sure that we're not spending money that we don't have, right? And that we're planning for the future. And so we're going to show you how to reconcile your accounts. And then the last thing I want to show you, this is a little bit advanced, but I think it can actually really help from the beginning, is that there is an extension. It's only for Chrome and Firefox at the moment. But if you use Chrome or Firefox, it's called Toolkit for YNAB. And it's going to add some fun, easy to follow, easy to use, like little additions that clean up some of the interface, add some extra functionality to make it even easier to navigate YNAB. And all of this sounds a lot, like it is a lot, any new system. But I promise you, once you start to use YNAB, once we talk about these core ways that YNAB works, it is the most effective long-term way to budget. I absolutely love it. And there's also some new tools for budgeting as a couple too. And so we want to make sure that you guys can see that as well. All right, so let's share screen here. Let me get this up for you and bring it up. And guys, if you have questions, keep commenting them, sharing them. If you use YNAB and you're struggling with something, post it in here. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit of a longer live because we're going to go through as much of stuff about YNAB as possible for you. But we're not going to be able to go over everything, not everyone's individual situations. And so if you're looking for additional help, who I will probably link you to is my good friend, Nick True. So Nick and I, we were in a mastermind together for a long time. We're close friends, and he and I think very similarly. And he is kind of like the YNAB guru on YouTube. He does all these amazing walkthrough videos. And so if you have a question that I don't get to answer in this live, maybe you're watching the replay and you want to wonder about it, either look up mapped out money on YouTube, or just let me know and I can see if Nick has a video on it, or I can record a video for you. Okay, cool. So let's see. Let's hit show and stream. Everybody let me know. I'm going to actually take myself off because I don't want you to not be able to see part of the screen. So you guys let me know that you can still hear me, and then I'll walk you through exactly how this works. All right. So this is when you come into a fresh budget. This is a fresh budget. Actually, I think I left some goals in here. Hold on. Let's turn this goal off. Delete this goal. So it's completely blank, but this is a blank budget. And so when you first sign into YNAB, you don't have any accounts over here on the left-hand side, right? And so that means you don't have any money to budget because you do not have any accounts. YNAB automatically creates all these budget categories. But until we have our account set up, let's ignore the budget categories. I'm going to show you guys some ones that I prefer to use. But let's add some accounts first. So let's add an account. And you can link or unlink. So if you want to link your accounts directly to your bank, most banks, major banks are available. And so what we have to do is agree here. So YNAB uses a tool called Plaid to securely connect to your bank. Now, they cannot create any transactions in your bank. It's very, very secure. Plaid is like the #1 tool that gets used for these kind of connections in any app. But you're going to just hit agree. And then you're going to search for your bank. Okay. And so this could be anything. And so like, I'm trying to think of, so we use like Capital One. I use Capital One for my business banking. And so you could like just look it up, click on it. It's going to ask you to sign in. And then what it's going to do is Plaid is going to ping your account and ask it to send you the normal code you would send when you sign in. So like if you have two-factor authentication on, it's going to send you that. After you log in, you're going to send in the two-factor authentication, and it's going to connect your account. That's what I do on almost all our accounts. This is one place where Nick and I differ, and you might differ, where you might like to manually enter things. It might make things easier for you to really keep it front and center that you're manually entering your transactions. For me, for my husband and I, we use our cards for everything. And we don't want to be forgetting to add things. And so we have it automatically connect. And so if you want to connect, that's what you do. You would hit a linked account. For us, for this tutorial, we're going to do an unlinked account. So we're going to say, this is a checking account. Okay. We're going to give it a nickname. We just call this main checking. And what's our current account balance? Let's say it's $4,500. Okay. Success. Now let's add another account. So let's say we have an unlinked account. We have a savings account that is our emergency fund, and there's $2,000 in it. Okay. And we also have some credit cards, right? So we're going to add some credit cards, and credit cards are where it gets a little bit interesting, right? So credit cards. Let's say this is our Discover card and our current balance is $250. So you want to go check whatever is your cleared balance in your credit card statement. Now, you know how sometimes you'll see the pending transactions at the top? Just look for the current cleared balance, which is like your current statement amount due, because anything that's still pending is going to get added as a new transaction as something since you connected YNAB and you don't want to double count anything. So make sure you have your current cleared account balance. Let's actually make this number a little bigger. So it's $550, okay? And now we're going to get a choice. And so this is when you decide how you want to deal with your credit cards in YNAB. So this one says, create a goal to pay off my balance over time. So if you do not have the money right now to completely pay off your balance, you're not someone who's paying off all their credit cards in full every month, you're going to want to choose this option. For this card, let's say we're going to say budget our entire balance. We pay it off every single month and just assume that we're going to pay it off. So we're going to hit next, okay? A category for your new credit card payment will be created in your budget along with a goal to pay off your entire balance. This is what it looks like. So when you use a pay it off in full every month credit card, the way it works in YNAB is the very first time you do it, you need to budget to pay off that balance. Every time in the future, when you make a payment in that with your credit card, YNAB will automatically credit it to the credit card and then move cash from your budget into paying that credit card payment, right? And so they will assume that you're paying it off in full every month automatically as soon as you get a transaction on your card. So the only time you should ever have to add a payment to something you're paying off every month is that very first time. And we'll talk about that in a second, okay? But let's say we have a credit card that has some money on it that we haven't paid and we don't pay in full. We're trying to pay it off. And so let's say we have a credit card. Let's say it's our JetBlue card. We went on vacation last year. We haven't paid it off yet. There's $1,500 on that card. Now we want to create a goal to pay off our balance over time. Okay, so let's hit next and decide how you want to pay this off. So do you want to pay your balance off by a specific date? Or do you want to pay an automatic amount every month until your balance is paid off? You can do it either way. But let's say we want to pay our balance off by a specific date. And so we want to pay this off by April 2021. We really want this credit card back. Now, what you want to see here is you'll need to budget $214 a month to reach this goal. The one thing I want you to check when you do this is make sure that this amount is bigger than your minimum payment. Because if not, you're not going to have enough to make your minimum payment, and that's obviously a problem. And so budget at least enough, hopefully more than that if you want to actually reach your goal. And we'll talk about how we deal with credit card interest a little bit later when we talk about credit cards. But okay, so now it's going to automatically create a goal that every month we need to put away $214.32 to pay off our balance by April 2021. Cool. Now, let's say these are our four main accounts, all right? We have our main checking account, an emergency fund, our Discover card, and our JetBlue card. And so we go to our budget. It's time to set up our budget. Now, this is what YNAB automatically has set up, all right? And as soon as you add a credit card, and if you go back earlier in this video, if you're watching the replay and you can scroll back, I know we're live right now, we didn't have a credit card payment section until we linked credit cards. And so now that we have credit cards, we have a credit card payment section. And what you'll see is that there's two yellow bubbles right here. And these yellow bubbles mean that we have a goal associated with those accounts. And so if you remember for our Discover card, we wanted to pay off this balance in full every month. And so what YNAB is telling us is we need to put $550 in here to stay on track and pay that whole balance off. Okay, so we're going to hit 550. And now it turns green. Being debt-free is a beautiful thing. You're going to get these little updates, right? Okay, so now we don't have to worry about that. And then we go to JetBlue, and JetBlue says you need to put $214 to stay on track, okay? And so this is the amount that you've said you're going to pay down, and if you want to turn it green, you have to be $214. But this isn't something that is required of you, right? Maybe your minimum payment is $80, and so for right now, you just want to put $80 in, okay? And then we will fill in this rest as we continue to fill out the budget. The next thing to do the first time you're in YNAB is you do not have to use the categories in the way they're laid out here. Often we get questions for people who first come into YNAB of like, okay, but how do I change the titles? How do I do things? And so let's look at this. Immediate obligations. So for me, I changed these to fixed expenses. Okay. And so these are bills that I owe the same amount on every single month, and they come in at a certain time. Okay. And so let's say rent or mortgage, right? The way you can set this up is you can say, I have a mortgage and I owe it on the 6th of the month every single month. So I would write 6th of month and I put that here. All right. The next thing you would want to do as you set up your budget is to set up goals. Okay. And so first off, let's just get these categories organized a little bit, but the goals are how you're going to figure all this out. And guys, if you have questions, I am watching the comments, so just drop comments in. I can slow down and explain all of this. So for setting up the budget, all these categories. So for electric, right, we do the same thing. Like, okay, maybe this is owed on the 12th of the month, and our water is due at the same time because it comes from the same, our utility bills come on the same time of month. And you start to fill this out. Now, you'll see that groceries are in fixed expenses. I don't like to keep it in fixed expenses because that's not really what it is, right? So it can move. And so to do that, you would have to click up here where it says add a category group. And let's say we say living expenses. All right. And so it pops up here, and all you have to do to move it is click and drag it down. And I'm going to put it under my fixed expenses because it comes next in the way I think about my budget. When you think like a waterfall, right? What do you need to fill? What cup do you need to fill first? And then as that cup tips over and is full, what do you pay next? And what do you pay next, right? And so for me, we tackle those credit card payments. We deal with our fixed expenses. Now we need to do some living expenses. So we move groceries down here. We move clothing up here. We move, we need to add, maybe we have a Netflix subscription. So we add Netflix, which is paid on the 28th of month. You're going to see why you want to add these different dates, why this is really, really helpful as we get into actually funding the budget. And so I'm just showing you guys this generally, and then I'm actually going to click to another budget that's already all filled in. But so for me, I have credit card payments, fixed expenses, living expenses. For true expenses, I just rename this as long-term expenses. Otherwise, their names are great. I love YNAB and I love how they've explained things. But if it doesn't really fit to what you're doing, it can get a little confusing. Okay. Quality of life goals, you just call this savings, right? These are just like long-term things you're planning, like a vacation. You might be saving for, if you have an IRA, you might be saving for retirement. Okay, so you put that down here. Just for fun. So I move this up by living expenses, and you can name it whatever you want. I like just for fun. I actually leave this category normally, but you can also name it spending or whatever you want, right? And so for here, you might say spending money, Chelsea, spending money, Jeremiah. Okay, all this stuff, right? You start to categorize everything that you need. And for your long-term expenses, auto maintenance, home insurance, car insurance. All right, you got all these things. You guys are getting what I'm talking about, right? So we have our fixed expenses are things that happen every single month and that we owe no matter what. These are our living expenses, so groceries, clothing. So this says transportation. We'll move this down here and say fuel, right? So if you need gas for your car, obviously. I would add kid expenses here. We don't have daycare. Daycare might be a fixed expense for you. But for us, it would just be kind of like kids stuff and whether we had a babysitter or whatever. Living expenses also would be pet expenses. I'm dragging this around. Okay. And like we also have like pet insurance, right? Up here because we owe it every month. And let's say that's on the 17th of the month. Okay. So as you get this all set up, you're going to start to see exactly how much you need and where your money needs to go. Now, the first time you look at this, you might be scrolling and you're like, oh my God, this is a lot of expenses. This is a lot of categories and ways to spend money. And it's a little bit overwhelming. It's more detailed. And the reason that it's more detailed is because we want you making really conscious choices about where your money is going and how to prioritize it. Does it mean you need to put money in every single one of these categories every single month? No. And if a category is not relevant to you, all you need to do is right click and hit delete. Okay. And you can delete a category. But what you want to see is what your options are. And when you look at this big green number up here of how much money you have available to budget, you need to know where your money needs to go. And so in this example, we have $5,800 to budget. And what we need to think about is that where does our money need to go next? If our mortgage is due on the 6th, well, it's the 8th. And so before we started setting up this YNAB budget in the middle of the month, we already dealt with our mortgage. And so we don't actually need to pay our mortgage, but our electric bill is due on the 12th, and that's coming up. And so we better put some money in there for here. And our water bill's coming up in the month, so we better put some money in there for here. And the pet insurance is coming up before you get paid next. And so you're going to put that in, right? And so you're going to start to prioritize where you need money. But when we think about, okay, but I am forward thinking. I know I only want to budget the cash that I have. And we're going to move to the other budget in a second. I just want to show you some tools about how this works. When we think about forward looking, we might be looking at this budget right now, or we might look at a clean month next month, right? And say, oh, well, it rolls the money over. So let's go back. You might be looking at a clean month in September and you're like, okay, well, I have this money to be budgeted, but how much do I need to put in each of these places? And do I have enough money? And how do I make it work, right? This is where people get overwhelmed, is they don't know where to prioritize. And then they're constantly having to move money around because they put a bunch of money in groceries for the whole month, but then all of a sudden their pet insurance bill was due. And so they had to move money from groceries to pet insurance. Is this following along, guys? So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to set goals. And YNAB has amazing goals. And they actually updated this earlier this year. So they now have even cooler goal options. And so what I want you to do is in every single category in your budget, I want you to set a goal. So let's say for the mortgage, right? We click on the mortgage. And right over here, you're going to see an option. It says create mortgage goal. So I'm going to click on that. And YNAB has 3 main types of goals, and each of these goals works a little bit differently, okay? This first one is called needed for spending, okay? You fund up to this amount with the ability to spend from it along the way. So let's say this could be groceries, right? You need to save $800 a month for groceries, but you're going to be spending on it throughout the month. It's just that you need to put in $800 total by the end of the month. That could be needed for spending. You're going to continue to use it. You could have a target savings balance. So let's say you're trying to save up a $5,000 emergency fund. You could choose this one. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, I want to do this by a certain date. Okay. And you're going to choose maybe June 2021. And you're going to hit save goal. And then it's going to do exactly what it did with your credit card, which is going to divide the number of months that you have left and tell you to save that much every single month. But that's not how your mortgage works, right? So let's talk about what the other options are. A monthly savings builder is kind of a sinking fund. We'll talk about that when it comes appropriate. But for a mortgage, we need it for spending, okay? Let's say our mortgage is $1,200. We owe it every month. And you now get to choose how much money, when you need that money. And so we need this mortgage money on the 6th, okay? So all this will do now, from now on, every single month, is that YNAB is going to tell you you need $1,200 by the 6th of the month. And you hit save. And now it's telling us we need money to stay on track, right? And so let's say we put $1,200 here. Now it's green. We got a nice check mark. We reached our goal. And when we move to next month, it's going to tell us once again that we need $1,200, okay? Cool. So we set goals for all of these things. And so for electric, we do the same thing. We say, okay, we need this for spending. We every month on the 12th, it usually is around, now this isn't a fixed number, right? Your electric is going to shift slightly, but let's say you average around $120, so you're going to hit save goal. What happens for groceries? So that's where we're going to say, we're going to slightly change this goal. And what we're going to say is we want to spend actually weekly, where our goal is to have a certain amount every single week for us to go to the grocery store, so that we don't really care how we are versus the whole month because it's only the 8th. But we want to know that next Saturday we have money to pay for our groceries, right? We want to make sure that we fund this category so that every Saturday or every Tuesday, my husband actually goes on Tuesday, but every Tuesday that we go to the grocery store, we have money. And so $800 a month is about $200 a week. You want to spend $200 a week on groceries. You hit save goal. And what this does is it now has these little dots for every week of the month. And so if you put $200 in here, we're 25% complete. And so now you have that first week of money to go to the grocery store, and you don't have to worry about it. And you can track this as progress on your weekly goal. So I like that for groceries. We like to think about it that way. Now we're currently a month ahead, and that's ultimately the goal that you want to achieve with YNAB, is that you're living on last month's money. We'll talk about that in a bit. But for now, if you're still kind of paycheck to paycheck or money is tight, these weekly goals can be super, super helpful. It's still going to encourage you, right? Instead of telling you that you're 100% on this week's goal, YNAB still wants you to get to that point where you're a month ahead. And so it's going to tell you it's 25% for the month, but you're working on the goal. Okay. Fuel, same thing. So let's talk about a goal that's a little bit different, right? So let's say gifts. Let's say, we actually normally have another category. You're going to see it when I open up the other budget. But let's say we add a new category group and we say gifts and giving. For me, I keep this one under just for fun. We move gifts, giving up to gifts and giving. And of course, this one didn't want to move for me. And then we usually do holiday gifts. Let's say for gifts. My kids don't get invited to birthday parties all the time. It's not something that I generally worry about. We don't get to invite them to weddings all the time. Most of our friends are already married now, but it happens. And so we want to make sure that we are slowly building up this envelope. Think about it as an envelope so that when we do get invited to a birthday party or something, there's money there. And so for gifts, what we might say is create a gifts goal. We need a monthly savings builder. Okay. And every single month, I want to add $15 to gifts. And so every month, I add $15. And now we have no transactions yet because we haven't loaded any transactions. We're not talking about that yet. So if we go to next month, they've rolled it over. And we now have $15 available for our goal. Okay, we're a month ahead. And if we add $15 here, now we have $30. And so if we go 3 months without going to a birthday party, we might have $45. And it doesn't mean we have to spend $45 on gifts, but we means that money is already there. We've saved it up for that goal. All right. Now, the last one I want to talk about is, so actually, let's talk for 1 second. For groceries, when we set a goal for groceries, where did my goal for groceries go? Oh, I went back too far. We set a spending goal. And so the way the spending goals work is that you're assuming you're already going to use that money and it's going to be gone. And so YNAB will not roll over that money for you till next month, depending on the settings that you set. Okay. And so when we look at a monthly savings builder, we want that money to roll over. So let's say for spending money for Jeremiah. Okay. Jeremiah gets $80 a month and he can use it along the way. But when there's any money left over, it will roll to next month that he can use next month. Okay. Cool. So these are generally how you set goals and set your categories. You're going to click through and think about what category titles you want, what categories make sense to you. If it's a fixed bill that comes in at a certain time, put the date in. You can also do that to your credit cards, right? You can think about when those are due. And then you set all your expenses. So what we're going to do is change our budget because I don't want to set this all up and show you guys the whole thing. I want to show you how we actually allocate a budget and how YNAB works. So in YNAB, with one account, you can have as many budgets as you want. And for our family, we actually have a number of budgets. This is a test account. And so we only have 2 accounts here. But you can have as number of budgets. In our family account, we have our family budget. I have our business budget. I actually do Profit First, which is a business like financial planning budgeting method in YNAB. So I have a YNAB goal. I have my own personal spending goal. And YNAB has recently added for couples that with one family account, you can each have a login. So for my husband, he can see our family budget and then he has his own personal spending budget account. And then when Hank gets a little older, we're going to make him his own little budget that he can track as well, which is a really cool tool. But let's jump over here. And this is already all set up. Okay. We have our checking account, our emergency fund, and all of these things. I've named all the categories so you can see fixed expenses, living expenses, where we have like household goods, all that kind of stuff. We have dining out, gifts, which we already talked about, long-term expenses. I added home insurance and car insurance, our savings goals. And then we don't actually currently have debt payments, so we're going to close that for a second. Okay. And so the way YNAB works is that you have this green number at the top and you want to give every single dollar a job, which means you need to budget for it. Okay. And so when we talk about how do we fund these things, right? So let's say we have $4,500 right now. And what it's telling us first is that our underfunded amount for the month of October is $4,620. Okay. Sue, I missed the first one. Yes, you missed a lot. We did like a half an hour of budget setup. What I said earlier is that we will connect those two videos, the one I was doing before and this one, so that it's one ongoing tutorial. But stick with me here for this one. We're going to go through the rest of the setting up a budget. Okay. So I'm going to stop my video and bring the budget up full screen. So what I was saying was this underfunded amount is telling you how much all of your goals added up together are. And so when we think about planning with YNAB and the benefit at the beginning of the month of having all of your goals set for every budget category is you can look and say, okay, I need $4,600 this month to cover all of my goals. Do I make that much money? If you do not make that much money, you need to go revisit your goals and change things around so that you know that you can actually cover your whole budget for the year or sorry, for the month. In this case, we actually have enough money right now to cover those goals. But what I want to do for a second is say this $2,000 in our emergency fund, I don't want to actually spend that on these other categories. So I'm going to put $2,000 right here. Okay. Cool. We're on track to reach my emergency fund goal. I've put that savings money in that space where the emergency fund is. Now I have $2,800 left to budget. And when I go back to this main screen, and what you have to do that is just uncheck all the categories. And so this button, you can just hit uncheck. Now I have $4,400 in unfunded goals and only $2,800. And so how do I budget that money, right? How do I think about this? So for us, we know, let's say we assume we know we actually make this much money a month. We actually make $4,400. We just haven't gotten paid for the second time of the month yet. And so what we need to think about is what do we have coming up in the next week or two until our next money comes up, and how do we budget it appropriately? So mortgage, as much as this is yellow, the 6th is passed. I already paid my mortgage before this month came up. And so I don't need to worry about that. But what I do need to worry about is all these other fixed bills that are coming up the rest of the month. So what I can do is I can unclick this and I can exclude the mortgage because that already happened. And this is why I love YNAB too, is that you can start a fresh budget any time of the month. It doesn't matter. You just say, okay, I don't actually need to fund my mortgage this month. I already paid it. And so there's $519. You see this underfunded change to be the total of all the selected categories. And so I definitely have $519. So I'm going to budget that. And I know, and I can uncheck these, and I know that I need groceries in the next 2 weeks. And I want to make sure we have 2 weeks of groceries. So I'm going to put $400 here. And for household goods, what if we checked the rest of these categories? Okay. We're underfunded by $805. Cool. We can actually fund all of those. So let's just hit underfunded and that'll fund all of those automatically. Now we got a whole bunch of green. Someone says, does this software automatically connect to your banking app? Yes, it can. We talked about that in the first video, and we will show you how that works. When we connect everything, you'll be able to see the first live stream and how you can connect. It does do that. Dining out. Let's see if we selected all these things. We're underfunded by $310. Cool, we can do that. What about long-term expense? Now we have to make some decisions here, right? So we have $851 left, but if we selected all of these three remaining categories, we need $1,100. And we only have $850. And so now what do we want to do with the rest of our money until we get paid next time? When we get paid next time, then we can fund the rest of it, and we can start actually to fund November, which is where the real key is that you're going to want to start funding ahead, right? You're going to want to start planning for getting a month ahead on your budget. But for right now, we only have $850. And so what I know is that actually, and let's even change this. I didn't actually set a goal for retirement savings, but let's say I want to put $200 a month in retirement. Okay. I know that of these other things, so we've got auto maintenance, home maintenance, medical, all these kind of things, right? I know that I need to cover my long-term expenses. I don't want to get in a situation where my car needs maintenance and I don't have money for it, right? I need to get my oil changed and I don't have money for it. So that's a priority. I need to cover that. But then I don't want to go a month where I don't have my retirement set up. So I'm going to hit underfunded. And now we have $79.57 left. And we have 4 categories that are yellow. We have our vacation savings and we have our gift giving accounts. and we have $79. Holiday gifts and gifts for others. Holiday gifts wants us to put $250 a month because I set this goal of $750 for December, but it's only October. And so I got a lot of catching up to do. I don't have $250 right now, but I do have $79. And so I'm going to put in, I either can type in $79.57 or I can click this amount, right? That's left. I can click it and then I can move to holiday gifts. Okay. And boom. What this does, and you always want in YNAB, your goal when you're done budgeting as YNAB is that you want this number to be a beautiful zero. And it is a one time in money where our goal is to get something to zero. And the reason is once we've gotten that money to zero, all of the cash that we currently have, this $3,600, which is how YNAB would look at like what cash you actually have available to spend because it's paying off these credit cards, has a job. We have determined where that money needs to go in alignment with our values and our budget. Does that mean things can't go wrong? Absolutely not. And so let's actually look at what that does. We have $80 in our household goods. Okay. And so for us in my family, household goods includes like paper towels and cleaning supplies and laundry detergent and all those kind of things. But let's say for household goods, we need us to stock up on a whole bunch of cleaning supplies that we didn't think about. And so on our Amex card, boom, we go and we spend, say, it's the 8th. We go and we spend money at Target and it needs to go in household goods. And we buy a whole bunch of cleaning supplies and paper towels and all this kind of stuff. And it's $90. Okay. It's $95. It's $95. So we hit save. Now I want you to look at a couple of things. Okay. It's going to try to teach me how to use credit cards, but I'm going to show you guys how to use credit cards. All right. Couple of things when you look at this balance, right? First off, this number up here, this is our cleared balance. So this already happened and was approved by our credit card, and we now owe it to the credit card. Uncleared, you guys know that it takes like a day or two sometimes for your credit card to actually process and finalize a payment. When you see those pending transactions on your credit card or even your bank statement sometimes. If you're manually entering transactions, so you're standing in Target, you make your expense, you pull out your YNAB app and you type in $95 to Target, that might not actually be cleared yet, right? And so we don't want to screw up our reconciling, which we're going to talk about later. And so this is saying that this is sitting in pending transactions. And you can tell it's sitting in pending transactions because this little C over here is gray, all right? But let's assume that it already cleared and we can click clear, all right? When we go back to our budget, oh my goodness, a few things have happened. Household goods is yellow. Uh-oh. We have negative $15 in this account. We do not have enough. We also have this little credit card exclamation point. And what that means is that our expense that went over our budget was done on a credit card, which means we can't actually pay off this credit card at the end of the month. So this one is set to pay off in full every month. We can't do that because we don't actually have the money in our household goods budget to cover it. So what can we do? When we click on this budget, you will get this pop-up that says cover overspending with, what are you going to do? How are you going to cover that overspending? Well, maybe this month, we don't actually need to buy any clothes. The kids for once did not grow. No one needs any new clothes. And so we're going to cover it with clothing. Ready to click that and watch this. Ready? We're going to hit okay. Boom. This goes to zero. We've spent all of our household goods budget. We can't do that anymore. But now clothing only has $35 and we still have $15 to get to that goal. But nothing is red. Nothing is screwed up. And now we have this green check mark, bam, next to our credit card, which means that at the end of the month, when the credit card statement comes, we can put $995 to that credit card, woohoo, and completely pay it off. Fantastic. And so that is how YNAB transactions work. You're going to see these things happen. Now, what if the money was budgeted? And so this is kind of cool, right? So let's say on our JetBlue card, we buy groceries. And so we go to the grocery store and we go to Walmart. I don't actually buy groceries at Walmart. ShopRite. We go to ShopRite and we are spending money in our groceries. We pick that expense and we spend $180 on groceries. Okay. We go back to our budget. Now, our grocery budget, we have added a transaction for $180. Our balance went down by $620, but you might be thinking, or maybe you're not thinking, but you might be thinking, well, I didn't actually spend any cash. I just swiped it on a credit card. My cash available is still the same. Well, according to YNAB, it's not, because YNAB wants you to break that cycle of building up credit card debt. So what it does is it reduces your cash available by $180, and it moves it into the payment that needs to go to your JetBlue. So we have a negative 180 here, but we have a positive 180 here because now we owe more money on that credit card. So $215 a month was our goal to getting it paid off in time, but we had new expenses on it as well, okay? Someone says, what app is this? This is YNAB. This is You Need a Budget. And so we're talking through a complete YNAB setup process. And there was actually a first live before that we got cut off on. Afterwards, I will splice those videos together for you so you can watch it all at once. But this is a software called You Need a Budget. Cool. Okay. And let me actually grab the link for you guys here. 1 second. You can get a 34-day trial to YNAB right at this link where I'm going to drop in the comments here in just a second so that you can follow along. All right. Cool. Crystal, there's a link right above you. All right. So this is how we budget. And as the month goes on, as you get paid, you're going to get more money to budget, right? And so then you're going to look at what goals do I have to cover? And then you can click to go to next month. Okay. And so next month, you're going to see that your goals are yellow again. And as much as you have money available, right, because we didn't actually put in an electric payment, you still have to put in another $120 that month, right? And so you can start to get ahead on what's coming up, and you can look at, okay, for my mortgage, I owe that on the 6th. And so if I have rollover money from last month, I want to make sure that that mortgage is covered as soon as possible from our last paycheck so that when that mortgage payment comes, I can pay it, okay? And you're going to start thinking forward. Now, credit cards are the one place that people get a little bit confused with YNAB. And that's because if you look at this goal, right, for JetBlue, we're not actually attributing any money to interest, right? So we're saying if I paid $215 every month until April 2021, I will have completely paid this card off. But that doesn't take into account the fact that the $1,500 that was the balance on our card when we started, what we're trying to pay off, isn't calculating any interest month to month. And of course, the credit card charges interest, right? And so what YNAB wants you to do is create a line item. And so when you pay your credit card bill, let's do that actually. Let's say our credit card bill comes today because that's how it works. And instead of typing in JetBlue, right, the payee isn't actually JetBlue. What it is a transfer to your JetBlue card, okay? So transfer to from JetBlue. And you're going to make a payment of $120. Okay, save. All right. And so when you go to your JetBlue card, you're going to see that the balance went down by, oops, where did it go? It went down by $120. We got that payment. All right. But that doesn't include the interest. And so what JetBlue, what YNAB wants you to do is create a transaction that says credit card interest. You're going to have to go to your statement, okay? You're going to put this in credit card interest and fees, and you're going to look for the line item that is your interest charge. And so maybe from that interest, it's $24, okay? And you're going to hit save. And that way, it's offsetting. Now, your credit card balance only actually went down by $96 because now you have this credit card, and you have to budget for that amount, right? So let's cover this. Let's click and cover this overspending with, let's see, what do we want to cover this with? Let's cover it with groceries just for sake of argument, okay? And now it's covered. The reason for this, making you actually look at your credit card statements and type in the interest fee every single month, is that it's forcing you to look at how much money you're actually sending to interest every month. This is a good mental game. It means that you have to go look at your statement, which is important. Even if you're auto importing transactions, you should go look at your credit card statement. And it keeps this all square. It lets you see that how much you're sending is actually, how much is it actually paying down your credit card. Okay, cool. So Sue says, where would yearly fees go? So that's where this interest and fees thing would come up too, right? So we could put in JetBlue annual fee and that we owe it we owe it in May every year. Okay. And so if we have a credit card with a $90 fee, for example, we could do a needed for spending by a certain date. We need it by May 15th. We want to repeat it every single year. So this is a goal that happens every single year. And we owe $90 and we hit save goal. And now we have an amount that will add up just like a little sinking fund. We need to budget $11.25 a month to cover that amount. Okay. And then when that fee comes in, it'll come in as a line item transaction, Sue, and you just need to set the category. Okay. Cool. Now, so that's how credit cards work with YNAB. That's how to set up goals, and that's how to set up your budget. Over time, you're going to get these transactions that come in. And so let's see. Let's add a few transactions here, okay? Let's say that we went to the gas station, we went to Cumberland Farms, and we got fuel, and that was $35. And then we went to where are we going to go, guys? Give us some ideas of some expenses we can put in here. We go to Target and we got the kids needed new. So we type in, let's say the kids needed new puzzle. They didn't need a new puzzle, but we got them a new puzzle. That was $18. And then we went to, we got our electric bill and that went to, or we went to our internet bill, Spectrum, and that was our internet. And that was $85. Okay. So we have a bunch of these expenses that are coming in. And you can see from right now that they're all uncleared. And we talked about this earlier, okay? Where YNAB is assuming that when we add an expense manually, that it hasn't been cleared yet. So what you would have to do as you add your expenses, if you're doing it manually, is pull up your statement side by side. So ideally, like we would make two windows on your laptop, and you'd have your running balance, and you would have this YNAB thing. And so you can see Target. Okay, you'd look for Target in your statement, and then you would say, okay, it's there, cleared. Cumberland Farm is there, it's cleared. This one's cleared, this one's cleared. Okay. And so what you want to do is then, okay, so it's checking our working balance is $3,742. So if we did this correctly, let's say we're trying to update our budget for today. If we did this correctly, the balance that we see in our checking account when we open our checking account should say $3,742. So what you want to do when you're done budgeting for a day or for a week is you're going to go into each category and you're going to hit reconcile. And it's going to ask you, is your current account balance $3,742? And let's say that it's not for us. It's actually $3,741.50. Okay. It's like off by a little bit. What you would say is no. And it would enter your current balance. So we say it's $3,473.5. Okay. There's a $1.50 difference. Compare each unlocked transaction to your account website or statement. If the transaction in YNAB matches, clear it. If it doesn't, make any adjustments necessary, then clean it up. Okay. And you can turn this off in the future if you want to do it. But what you want to do is YNAB is telling you exactly how far off you are. And we mentioned in the first part of this live before we lost that if these numbers don't match, if your bank account and your credit card statements don't match what's actually happening, you cannot trust the numbers in your budget. And so reconciling is incredibly, incredibly important, especially at times that you're more than $1.50 off. And so what happens is you can go look at all your different transactions. All right. You're going to look at what is right here. And you're going to see if there's anything wrong. Maybe you go look at fuel and you're like, oh, wait, hold on. That was actually only $33.50. And now when we hit reconcile, is your balance $3,743.50? Yes, it was. Okay. You say yes. And now you see all these things went away. And you're like, okay, wait, hold on. I needed all those transactions. What we're going to do is show reconciled transactions. Okay. You're going to hit filter. You're going to hit show reconciled transactions. You're going to hit okay. And what that's going to do is you're going to see all these locks. And these locks mean not only that it was cleared in your bank account, but that you checked it and that it is confirmed and reconciled in your account. Okay. And so the benefit of this is that, if you ever have an issue in the future, so next week you come to budget and something's not balancing, YNAB will automatically, you can just hide all those reconciled accounts, and you know that those ones were not the issue, because up until that point, you had checked it and they are locked. They are good to go, okay? This is actually, I turned this on, guys. So this is show running balance. And so when you turn this off, it's just showing the inflow and outflow. When you hit show running balance, this is like more what it shows in your checking account or in your credit card statements, where at the end of each expense, it's telling you how much money is left. And so this can also help when you're reconciling, is to just look at the running balance next to the running balance on your statement, equal, 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 and this figure out the first time that you put a transaction in that it didn't, the running balance in your account didn't actually equal the running balance in YNAB. And then you can figure out how that could cause the problem, right? So let's say our Amex card. Okay. We had, where do we go, guys? We had, we went to McDonald's for some reason, and we count that as dining out, I suppose. And we spent $5.47. And then we went to, where do people spend money? We ordered something off Amazon, which was spending money for me. And I ordered a book, and that was $9.87. Okay. And so now our working balance, let's say Amazon and McDonald's cleared. Okay. So cleared. Sue, I'm going to look at your question in 1 second. Now we go reconcile. Does our account balance for our Amex card equal $1,010.34? Let's say we said no. And let's say it was actually $1,009.87. Okay. And you go through and you check all your expenses. You check the ones that are there. You check the ones that are in your bank account, and you cannot figure this out. It's 47 cents. And some people with YNAB would be ripping their hair out. Like, hold on, I'm going to just turn the camera on for a second. It's not going to bother anybody. Okay. Completely losing it. Some people get really stressed out about it doesn't equal. It's not working. I can't budget. What did I do wrong? I hate all these numbers. What you can do is you can say, listen, continue. YNAB is going to tell you there's an account cleared balance in YNAB that's 47 cents lower than your actual account. You can spend that time comparing all of your things and you can't find it. All you have to do is do this. Create an adjustment and finish. And what that did, let's turn our reconciled accounts back on, is all YNAB did is made a reconciliation balance adjustment and took it out of your money to be budgeted, entered automatically by YNAB, and it balanced your account. And now this is equal. And now your amount to be budgeted has been shifted. And so for, that 47 cents got moved. And now you're balanced again. And so that's how you reconcile. So when you sit down to budget for the week, what you want to do, and so what I do, let's talk about what I do. Okay. I sit down. The first thing I do is I come in here and remember that all my accounts are linked. And so when you see that, there's going to be a button that this would have a number next to it. Usually it'll be like 8, import 8 new transactions. And I could click this button and it would import them. When it does that, those transactions are bold. And so even though YNAB knows that those transactions are cleared and that they're accurate, YNAB doesn't want to let you off the hook to actually look at those transactions. And so they're going to be bolded until you approve them. And so you're going to have to double click, change the category if you need to change the category, and then just hit enter and approve them. Now, if you scroll down and all the categories that YNAB automatically chose were right and you're okay with all of those things, you will be able to select them all, edit, and then mark as approved. And so this is gray right now because none of these things need to be approved or cleared, but you would be able to see that transaction. Okay. Now let's look at Spectrum. Okay, hold on. Actually, let's look at Sue's question. So Sue says, here's a doozy. Can you split a YNAB between 2 people in a relationship? I.e., I take care of my credit card and some other household. Hubby takes care of mortgage and our common credit card for groceries, as well as his own credit cards. Is there a way to share the household stuff and have a separate one for individual transactions? Yes, this is actually a new feature from YNAB, and they're really excited to roll it out. And it was part of the reason they were so excited to be part of the Mamas Talk Money Summit this year. And so what they're doing, sorry, I have to move. I need to adjust my foot here. What you can do is with one family account. So Sue, you get your YNAB account, you pay, you exceed your free trial, you pay either monthly or annually. You can get 2 logins, one for you and one for your partner. It's the same account. For some budgets, you can mark them as shared. These are budgets that you two handle together. Okay. So this is where you have money, you're moving money into one checking account, maybe to pay off, your household expenses, your hubby's things and things like that. You can both see that one, you can both adjust it, you can both put money into it. Then you can have, I mentioned before, when you go to open budget, you can create another budget. And so you can create Sue's budget that includes the things that you cover and the things that you are spending money on. And your husband can, in his account, he can't see your budget unless you mark it that he can. And then he can have his own in his account that he can mark as you can. So YNAB actually has some great tutorials already, and we'll link these after we get off the call, of how to use YNAB if you're budgeting as a single person, if you're budgeting completely merged, or if you're budgeting partially, like you're mentioning, Sue, where you like kind of work together on some things and you're individual on other things. They have tutorials on how to do that, but you can absolutely do that in YNAB. Now, so any other questions, guys, keep posting them, because there's obviously we're going through a lot of stuff here. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is planning expenses. And so goals have kind of made this obsolete. You don't necessarily need to do this, but it can be really helpful for some people. So when I look at these like recurring goals, I don't worry about what we're going to do in a second here, but I can show you. Let's say, where did my Spectrum payment go? There's Spectrum. Okay. So Spectrum is a fixed expense. It's my internet. Happens every month for $85. What I can do is I can click this expense and I can hit edit and I can say make repeating. Okay. And this is due monthly on the 19th every single month. Okay. And I hit save. And now every month I will get a scheduled transaction for Spectrum. Someone said, will you be saving this to the page? Yes, we will absolutely be saving this to page. And there's actually a first part of the live beforehand that you might have missed. And so I will make sure that we'll meld those together so that you see everything, Michelle. But keep asking your questions, all right? So now you have these scheduled transactions. And so when you go into November, you see this little schedule button? There is a payment that you owe by the 19th that you have to budget for. You have an $85 transaction coming up. And because of where you have budgeted right now, after that transaction happens, you will have a negative balance. And so if you budget for that money, let's say we get paid. Okay, let's go to the checking account. Let's say we get paid. Employer to be budgeted. Inflow, $2,500. Save. Okay. Now you have money to budget again. And so you're November, you have $2,500 to budget. Cool. And we go to, where were we? Oh, internet. We can click on it. Why is it doing that? Oh, you can do underfunded. And now you'll see this thing that says budget for upcoming. You have an upcoming bill that you have to cover, and you can click cover. And now everything is green. You've reached your goal and you have an upcoming transaction. So you can use both or either of these. For some of these things that are recurring and have a certain date, you might like to set a recurring transaction that's happening that gives you that calendar notification over here in addition to your dates, so that you can make sure you're covering those bills before they come in. That can be helpful to some people. But that's just another thing that you can do to start to forward plan, right? And so you could do that too with, did we put any other recurring expenses in? We didn't, but you can mark anything as recurring and make sure that it starts to plan in your budget. Who else has questions about YNAB? I know a lot of people have used YNAB in the past and kind of struggled with it. I also realized my camera was still up, so you guys probably couldn't see before. Hold on. Can you see this? Okay, so budget for upcoming. You could click this, and then it would turn this green, but it also is turning your goal down here green because we have a goal and an upcoming expense in this category. Who else has questions about YNAB? Because I know that this is where it gets confusing. Now, you can do reports, and this is going to show you in a month, what are you spending in which categories? Obviously, these reports get better and better. The more that you use YNAB, for the longer you use YNAB, you're going to be able to see more trends in how much you're spending and what you're spending. While you guys decide if you have any questions, I'm going to talk about an advanced thing for a second. There is an extension, a browser extension called Toolkit for YNAB. And this was created by incredible developers. It is so amazing. And it basically adds extra features to YNAB to make it easier for most people to use, okay? And so there's a ton of options in here. And all it is, it's free. You can add it to Chrome or Firefox. You can't use it to Safari right now. And so for me, I have a whole bunch of settings that I'll use it with, but I'm going to just turn it on for a second, okay? When you turn it on, you have to hit refresh. Otherwise, it won't actually load, but let's just hit refresh. Now you're gonna see a lot of things that changed. Hold on. Somebody said, does YNAB do bill pay or just the budgeting? This is just the budgeting. You can't schedule any transactions from YNAB, but you can actually make the payment from YNAB. You're gonna have to set that up outside of YNAB. This is just for tracking your budget, Carrie. Okay. What changed here for you guys? All right. Let's show you. The first thing is credit card payments. This is just a fun, silly one, but it adds this emoji to credit card payments. In our actual budget, we have emojis all over the place because we want to make the budget as much fun as possible. And so like for pets, we have like a chicken and a dog here. And for, this is just a test budget. For a mortgage, we have a little house. We love using emojis, but because this is automatically made by YNAB, you can't actually edit it unless you use Toolkit for YNAB, in which case you can turn that on. The other thing that changes is your goals, your underfooted goals turn blue. The reason that I really like this, and this is important, is that before in standard YNAB, if you don't have the Toolkit plugin, which is free and you can turn it on, then the overspending on credit cards is yellow and the underfunded goal is yellow. And so it's not as easy to instantly call out, that's a credit card problem that I need to fix right away. And so with Toolkit with YNAB, you turn that blue. Now, the other thing that you can change, and this is another tool, right? Is that you can it adds a fourth column that shows you your exact goal for that number. So instead of having to click through to each one and see like, okay, my goal's underfunded, but how much do I need type of thing, it'll show you right here what your total goal for the month is. So you can see those goals. I like seeing that. It changed to some of the reports a little bit. It's going to be hard to tell because we don't have a lot of data in here, but what you can see is that, actually, let's turn it off for a second. Turn it off, refresh, and then you'll be able to see. Okay, so this is really wide and it's really hard to see all the categories. And obviously you got all these zeros in here, which is kind of distracting. When you use reports from Toolkit for YNAB, it shrinks it down and it just makes those zeros empty cells and it becomes a lot easier to read. And so what it's telling you, what this particular chart is telling you is income versus expense. So how much money did you earn versus how much money did you spend? And what is your net income? So this is how much money are you keeping for you in the future? And so when you look at what is in here for expenses, we have interest and fees, fixed expenses, living expenses, just for fun. Okay. And it's not including our savings goals, which is nice, right? Because our savings goals aren't actually being spent. They're being set for the future. Okay. And then Toolkit reports, these are some like additional cool reports that Toolkit can do for like income breakdown. You can see where your money came from. Your employer, maybe you have some side hustles. It'll show you where the money came from and then where the money went. Okay. Into all these different kind of charts, but that happens with Toolkit for YNAB. Some other things Toolkit for YNAB does is see this clock and these locks. In general, you would have to go into like view and then change whether you're able to see the running balance. You'd have to like click in and then click again, or you'd have to go in here to change to show reconcile transactions. All this does is like hide scheduled transactions, show scheduled transactions, and hide reconciled transactions or show them. It just makes it easier to click. But there's some fun things that they do about goal setting. It also hides some numbers you don't need. And so I really like Toolkit for YNAB just to make it even easier to navigate. But it's not at all a requirement. The last thing that actually is showing here that you guys can see is it highlights the current month. So with YNAB, the way it normally is, every single month looks like this gray. And when you're planning for the future, and this is something for me, so we actually budget, we like to have 2 to 3 months of expenses in our like YNAB budget prepared and that cash available. So that's like how we have like part of our emergency fund. For us, it's hard when I'm clicking forward and clicking back, and then I think I'm in the right month, but I'm in the wrong month. And so it just turns the active month blue, which is nice. The last thing is I want to talk about days of buffering and age of money. So days of buffering is a Toolkit for YNAB thing. So I'm going to talk about that second. For YNAB, what they do is they have age of money. And when you're new to YNAB, so let's just hide this for a second. When you're new to YNAB, age of money is really confusing. And one of YNAB's 4 rules is to age your money. And so imagine if you have like a cylinder, right? And you have a stack of money. Here you go. We have Mama's Talk Money stickers, okay? Here's all your money. All right. Let's see. Hold on. I have a question here. I missed the beginning. So sorry if you already mentioned this, but do you start the budget before taxes and things come out of paychecks or from take-home pay? From take-home pay. Just absolutely from take-home pay. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to want to have a whole category for taxes. I would add a new category for taxes and then make sure that you're putting away your taxes and your FICO and stuff like that. For me, I actually budget that in my business budget. Like I said, I use YNAB for profit first in my business as well. And so I budget taxes in there. And then I only bring, my payment to myself in that's post-tax. And so then I start post-tax. But yeah, you don't need to go to the before your taxes, just whatever hits your bank account. Always be thinking about like actual cash that you have. But let's imagine this is a literal stack of money that you have. Okay. And the money you earned longest ago is on top. So you get a paycheck on the 15th and now it goes on the bottom. Okay. And so you are spending money for the oldest money first. YNAB assumes that you are spending the oldest money first. Okay. And then you go off. Age of money is saying how old is the oldest money that you're spending. Okay. So you get another paycheck and it moves up, right? And now your money is getting older and older. And so how many days of money, how long ago did you earn the money that you're currently spending? And so what YNAB wants you to do when they say age your money is they want you to get to a point where, like, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, your money might be 5 days old, right? Your entire stack is just this paycheck. This is a paycheck from September 30th, right? And you're still spending that money and your money's only 5 to 7 days old. But if you save some of this money, and I'm not going to break this out, right? Then you get another paycheck on October 15th. And now your money is 15 days old because you have some money left over from September 30th and you have some more money. And so YNAB's goal for you is to age your money to at least a month, which means if your money is 30 days old, you're living off last month's paychecks. And now you're no longer living paycheck to paycheck, right? You have what you need already in your bank account. So November 1st comes and you sit down to do your November budget in YNAB and you can fund all your categories because you already have all your money from October and you can fund all your categories. And so that's what age of money is how old is the money that you're spending. Days of buffering is different. And that's a toolkit for YNAB add-on. And what that does, and it's nice if you are trying to save an emergency fund or you're trying to, your income is inconsistent or you're worried about, being laid off or something like that. Days of buffering is if from right now, you didn't earn another penny, like you got laid off from your job, how long, based on your spending history, could you last before you needed to make more money, right? And so what days of buffering will automatically use in Toolkit for YNAB is the average of your monthly spending for as long as you've been using YNAB. So at first, so if you look at this right here, this is question marks, and this is because this is a new account, so I don't actually have any spending history. But as I get a couple months in here, it'll average what I'm spending every month, and then it'll give me my days of buffering, okay? And that's going to exclude, by the way, our savings goals and stuff. This is our actual, what YNAB actually considers our actual spending accounts, okay? And so that's nice to know, like, how much do I actually have? What's my actual emergency fund to carry me forward if I needed that money to carry me forward? So I like days of buffering. So this is a free add-on. If you go to Toolkit for YNAB, if you just search Toolkit for YNAB, you have all these different accounts that you can use, right? You can have like printing improvements and how you want different colors to show up and splitting transactions and whatever. I have certain settings that I like, but that's a way to, I think the biggest one that I think everybody should change is on the budget screen. There is the option for, well, the goals indication. I like this column for the goals indication, but I would absolutely add the goal indicator warning color. Change that so that the goal is blue. And so when you have credit card overspending, you can see it right away. Okay. So if you get a tax refund, you just add it as extra income. Yes, absolutely. That's what you would do. You would, and that's actually how it would come in too. So let's say that came in and we're doing everything on the 8th because you can't actually do historic stuff in YNAB. Like YNAB is going to imagine that you are, boom, fresh starting from the day you start your budget. And so you can't put in old transactions because it'll screw up your starting balance, right? And so that's why I'm entering everything on the 8th here. But let's say you got IRS tax refund. The category would be to be budgeted, and you would get an inflow of $450, right? And all that would do is add money to your to be budgeted amount, okay? That's all that would happen. Any other questions? Do we do YNAB in our house? We really use YNAB for take-home pay. It makes everything so much easier for tracking. Yeah, just for budgeting. Cool. What other questions do we have, guys? YNAB is a really powerful tool. And I think that, like, if you don't have a goal for a category, I like goals. Like, I do everything with goals. It's just easier for me. And so, like I said, like, we have this $2,800. We want to make sure we hit this goal for the mortgage because we owe it on the 6th. So if we only get paid the 14th and the 30th, we're not going to get paid in time. And so we need to make sure that our last paycheck from October can pay our mortgage, right? So we put that money in. Well, what you can do if you don't have a goal is you can put an average budgeted or average spent. And so for things like when you're learning how much you budget and maybe you're a couple months in and you're trying to figure out how much do I need to spend for clothing, you can do average budgeted. And so I like doing this. So once a year, we do what's called a fresh start in YNAB. And so what will happen is, see this button says make a fresh start. It'll create a copy of your budget, but it'll clear out everything except for your current starting balance. And you get to kind of decide again where all your money goes. So as money builds up and rolls over in all these accounts, this lets you say, like, okay, let's just put all the money back in the main bucket. And you decide again with a fresh start how much money you want to go everywhere. Okay. And so for that, when we get to the end of the year, sometimes we might look at our clothing budget and say, like, hey, our goal is currently $50 a month. But when we look at our average when we look at our average spent over the last year, it was actually only $37. And so maybe we set that at $40 this year, and then we get to put that $10 where we need it. And so some of these things, and this quick budget, anytime you hit one of these buttons, it's just going to automatically budget that a month. Can you set up the buffer you like to have in checking accounts? Meaning I don't like my checking to be lower than X, so my account balance would always be higher than what's budgeted for the month. Okay, so for that is just depending on what you want in savings, right? And so when you have your goals down here, you might, so for us, so like you might have $500 that stays in like an emergency fund or a buffer fund, and that money is already spent, and none of these other categories will ever get that $500. And so your checking account will never go under $500 because you don't spend out of that account, and that money is protected in that account. Does that make sense? All right. Josie says, Denise, yep, depressing for sure. I always do that calculation at tax time. I wouldn't want to see it every month. Yeah, you definitely don't want to see that every month. Somebody says, what were the separate budgets you mentioned? Yeah. So if you go into the top here and you go open budget, you can have multiple budgets. Okay. So you could have your family budget, and this is just a test account, right? But I could create a whole new budget and just call it like Chelsea's personal goals, right? And I could create this budget. And for this budget, all of this other stuff might be silly, but like I might want, maybe I haven't done any hobbies besides reading in a long time, but maybe I have a sewing hobby and I want to be safe with my monthly, spending money that my husband and I split out. I want to have a new sewing machine and I want to get some fabric and I want to get a new quilt quilted by someone who's not me. So quilter. Okay. And I delete these things. Delete. Oh, I have to do it up here. So we delete the things that we don't need. And then I have a category for fun money. So maybe I have a subscription box, like a Spark Hustle Grow subscription box. And I have a book budget because I need a book budget, right? And so I can set up my own budget for my own personal things. This is actually what my husband and I actually have. Not sewing. I don't have a sewing budget at the moment because I haven't sewed in a long time, but you can set up your own budget. And so for us, like if you go to our family budget, which is not in this account, like I said, okay. But if I went to our family budget Where am I going? This one. Love having the idea for other budgets. Yes, it's great for vacations, Josie. I really, really like that idea. That's a really good point. Now, what I like is if you go in here and you see all these checking accounts, right? We wouldn't have, so for my husband and I, we wouldn't have like Jeremiah's spending account and my spending account in our budgeted accounts here. What would happen is in our checking account each month, when we make a transfer to those accounts, we would have it as a payment to Jeremiah, right? And we'd be like, the category is spending money J, and he gets his $80. And we hit save, and now that is already marked as he got his money. And then when he goes to his budget, right, Chelsea's personal goals, it would be in his account linked here, right? So we would have a checking account unlinked. It's a checking account, Chelsea spending. I currently have 240, whatever it is, right? And then now I can budget that money in my own budget. That's how we work it with our split. But we only split spending money, so it's not as confusing as if you were like doing bills and stuff. Any other questions? Guys, this is a really powerful tool. And I think that like it is a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces. Getting in the habit of reconciling your transactions, going in and putting your transactions in if you're doing it manually. Like I said, I like to link my accounts, but if you're doing it manually, being able to actually go in and reconcile and check things, it takes time. And it's not the simplest process, but no budgeting process is going to be super straightforward. What I would recommend is that you check in on your budget at first every couple days. So I actually like to check my YNAB budget probably multiple times a week still, even after all these years. And the reason is if I do it multiple times a day, I only have to approve like 3-4 transactions. Not multiple times a day, multiple times a week. I only have to approve 3 or 4 transactions, and then it's not as much work, right? It takes me 5 minutes, as opposed to if I only did it once a month or once every 2 weeks, and now I've got to approve a whole slew of transactions, and I've got to look up what we bought on Amazon and what category it goes in. Then that takes a really long time, and it gets kind of stressful. And so I do it every couple of days, and then my husband and I sit down once a week and say like, okay, where's our progress at? Anything needs to change, anything need to shift around, or the categories we need to move money from. And we keep it pretty straightforward. But we always know that money is there when we need it, okay? You can see that, when we need to go to the gas station to get fuel for the truck, do we have money to get fuel for the truck? And if not, where is it coming from? And so when we talk about spending money in alignment with your values, this makes you think and consider. And if you overspend in a category, you actually have to look and decide where that extra money is coming from. And so what that does is it makes you realize like, oh, we overspent on dining out this month and it seemed like it was a lot of fun, but then I had to cover that expense from our vacation budget. And now we're not on track for vacation next summer. And so I really want to watch our dining out budget next month because I do not want to move money out of our vacation account again. And you actually have to do that process. And it's part of the beautiful, amazing part of YNAB. Somebody said here, reconciling is a treat for me. I reconcile every Friday so I know what I have to spend for dinner out during the weekend. That's a great idea. I love checking in on Friday night. And actually Friday night is when we do our family budget meeting too. And like I've said to you guys multiple times, over the last year, we do ours Friday night after the boys are in bed. We have a special, dessert or something, and we sit down, we talk about it. And this gets, if you're in a situation where your partner's not ready to talk about budgeting yet, they're not involved, they don't want to be involved, that's okay at the beginning. Over 2/3 of moms run the household budget. And maybe you can't control your husband's overspending in some category. He goes to the gas station and he overspends on snacks every week. You can start to plan for that. And you can control all the categories you control. Your clothes, the kids' clothes, the grocery budget, negotiating your insurance. You can manage all of those things. And then as you start to make progress, when you come to your husband, you say, hey, we have enough cash to go on vacation. Or, hey, we paid off a credit card. What most families report is that after a few of those little progresses, their partner's like, wait, you did what? Like, I want to know how you did that. I want to get involved. And so then they get more interested. but you can control a lot even on your own. If your spouse is interested in talking about it, this is a good way to show too, to be able to show the numbers and the blues and the yellows and the greens and say, like, this is how we're doing. Like, do we want to move money from somewhere else? Is this aligning with what we want? Is this fitting our goals? And so keep it really flexible. Remember that the first time you set up your budget is not going to be right. But the goal is always to budget the money you currently have in your account and cover the expenses you need to cover before you get paid next, and keep aging your money. Eventually you want to be able to use that first paycheck in October to start funding November, and the second paycheck in October to finish funding November and covering any other expenses. The last thing you can do, by the way, is move money around. And so let's just show you guys this for a second, okay? I'm going to show you guys one last thing, unless anyone else has any questions. When you get to the end of the month and you're reconciling for the end of the month and you're setting up your budget for next month, one of the cool things that you could do is you can see what money you have left over in all your accounts and what you want to do with that money. So let's take an example. Let's say our kid expenses are $75 a month and we only spent $18 that month. They only wanted that new puzzle. Otherwise, they were fine. They didn't need new clothes. We didn't have a babysitter because COVID. And so what you can do is you can click this budget and you can say, move it to wherever you want to move it to. And so let's say you move it to be budgeted. Okay. And then your pet expenses, let's say stuff I forgot to budget for. We didn't forget anything this month. That's amazing. I click that and I move it to be budgeted. Okay. And you see how this number is going up. And then I don't want to move anything out of auto maintenance because I want to make sure that that money, let me take myself off the screen. I don't want to take anything out of auto maintenance because we want that to be growing every month. So we're going to leave that alone. We don't want to take anything out of home insurance or retirement savings. Absolutely not. And so we go to, let's see if there's anything else. My spending money, and we're going to leave that alone. We're going to let that build up. Groceries. Okay, this is unrealistic. Let's add an expense for a second. There's no way we are that under on grocery budgets, right? We went to ShopRite. We did it up. Let's say we spent $575. Obviously over multiple times, guys. Don't go spend $575 at the grocery store. Okay, but our grocery budget is $21. We have $21 left in our grocery budget. And we want to figure out what to do with that money. Now, do we want to roll that money over into next month so that we already have $21 available and we're already working on our goal, right? So if we click here, we only need to save a little bit more, we only need to save another $700 and whatever dollars to hit our $800 spending goal. But I don't actually want to roll that over. I want to stay under $800 every month. And so I'm going to take that money and I'm going to move it to be budgeted. And now we've moved an extra, well, we can't see because I've screwed this up, but we've moved like $50 out of these three accounts, these zero accounts, to whatever we want to do it for. And maybe that means that we up our JetBlue payment, our goal to pay, or what are we trying to pay off, guys? I can't remember. Our goal to pay off our JetBlue card by $50. And now we're getting closer to reaching our goal, right? And we can move that money around at the end of the month so that when we go into November, we're actually making as many choices as we need to make about our money. And so when we look about moving money, YNAB tries to make it as easy as possible for you to move available funds around when you need them. Now for this one, right, like you're going to see you have a cell phone bill on the 14th of the month that you need $140 and you only have $140. So you don't want to move money out of that account, right? And so this is where it's all going to get very easy to follow. And that's the beautiful thing about YNAB is that you can start to plan and start to understand how your money flows and moves and where things are tight and where things maybe you have been assuming you spend more than you do, or maybe you assume you need more than you do. And so that's YNAB. I will merge the two videos that we had from the live earlier so that you can get the full picture of setting this up. We covered a lot of things in this video about getting set up and using YNAB. If you have questions, please let me know. Okay, I got the hiccups all of a sudden. Let me know, comment here. We will also have Tuesday at 7 p.m. In the Facebook group and also in the Summit site. YNAB trainer is going to come and they're going to give a 15-minute presentation about a certain specific way to use YNAB. And then we're going to open up for questions for 40, 45 minutes to the YNAB person. So what I would recommend is if you can, watch this video this weekend. You've already watched part of it, but make sure you watch it all. Sign up for your free trial. The link is in the comments and also above the other video. I'll add it to this video when we're done. Watch it and set up your budget. And if you have questions as you set up your budget, bring them to Tuesday's live, because we're going to have someone from YNAB there to answer your questions. And so that's a really good way to get set up. In the meantime, let me go link these two videos together from our little tech snafu, and good luck. I hope you love YNAB. It really is a powerful tool for making sure your money is doing the things that you want it to do.